Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour, and today is Thursday, May 15th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Rice on the internet at whyagain.org. If you go to that web page and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Rice's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using for over 20 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again, absolutely free. You can also download from that web page a whole host of audio files that have been curated out from the archives in which people have been stepped through the worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them, even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that, by the time you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. And we hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, we greatly appreciate you doing so. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org. And or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a question or a comment or a testimonial from you, we'll address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred, so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. And if you want to join us through Zoom, we'd be happy to have you do that. Zoom publishes a whole host of numbers that you can use once you call, if you happen to have unlimited long distance and want to call in directly. Once you call one of those Zoom numbers, all you need is the meeting ID number for this particular session, which is 853-2357-4173. And if you type that in your phone, you can listen in, or if you open up a window on your web browser and go to zoom.us and then enter that meeting ID, you'll be able to share with us. We ask when you come on that you just mute yourself, and then if you have something specific to add, unmute and speak up. We encourage people to speak up. I view contributions as additive and as a blessing. And if you go back through the archives and look at the shows that have been curated out and labeled as best of or highlight shows, not every one of them, but the vast majority of them are shows where people just like you have called in and asked a question or given a testimonial or worked through a worksheet process. So yesterday I had the privilege of being asked to do a webinar for the Healing Grove community and Dr. Kristen Reimann. And in it, I talked about, and I presented two tools. One of them is the mind goal management sheet. We don't talk about that very much on this show because it's not the core tool, but it is a very useful, powerful tool. And then I presented the mental short version of the reality management worksheet that's available on the mindshiftersacademy.org website, as well as the whyagain.org website under other worksheets. And so, Dr. Michael Rice says his goal is to get these tools into the hands of every heart, mind, and being on the planet, whether they have any financial resources to pay for it or not. And so yesterday's time during the internet show was just that, was just a little nudge in the direction of exposing more people to these tools and Dr. Rice's website and all the wonderful work that Jeannie has curated out for that. And so we'll see how that goes. We'll see if anybody from there decides to start tuning into the internet show or the support groups. And today's a Thursday, which means that there will be a support group tonight from 6:30 to 9 p.m. Central Time. There will be a free support group that's available. You can find out all the information about that on the mindshiftersacademy.org website. And the way it's set up now, it still has a separate ID login page for Tuesdays and a separate one for Thursdays. So feel free to join us or forward that information along to somebody you think might benefit. And the more the merrier. If nobody has a comment or a question, and I haven't received any emails recently about that, I'm going to return to my reading from the book A Walk in the Physical. Yeah, I think I mentioned that I was able to have a very successful interview with Micah Salaberios, who is the author of, I mentioned it on Tuesday because I had done the interview in the morning before the internet show. He's the author of the book, The Art of Nonviolent Communication, and it's a book that I routinely recommend to people, whether they're in the support group or they're in my caseload. So now back to the A Walk in the Physical book by Christian Sundberg. We're in the second part of the book where he's got 166 short essays, and they're categorized into themes. And we're working our way through the theme, Life as Feedback. And the one we haven't read yet, there are several, but the next one we haven't read yet in that list is titled Spiritual Growth as a Change in the capital B Being. And Christian writes, spiritual growth, excuse me, spiritual growth is not something that happens in the mind. Spiritual growth is not a correction of ideas or even just a change in action. Spiritual growth is a change in one's very being, in quote, what one is, close quotes. This kind of change is not easily undertaken. in order to grow, one typically must be willing to undergo significant personal alteration. Significant personal alteration is not on the top of most people's list of what they would like to do today. Most people walk around with a belief that they're okay just the way they are, and there's something wrong with the world and the people around them. So spiritual growth as such, as being this change in personal beingness, spiritual growth is often a destructive or painful process, and when the moment comes, many are unwilling to actually experience and undergo this intense personal alteration that is necessary. It's far easier to tell oneself a story of what one is than to actually change. And yet, he says, that's our reason for being here. We came here to actually change. So much of the pain each of us experiences in our daily life remains with us because we're unwilling to fully accept responsibility for our own state of being. And we are unwilling to grow into the humility and selfless intent that our pain calls us to. By the, quote, laws, close quotes, of the greater divine reality, our own past intentions have brought us into exactly our experience in this present moment. And yet, many of us resist the present moment and the lessons it has to offer. Spirituality is about your relationship to the present moment. It is about your actual experience with what you do with it. If you meet that experience with willingness, openness, personal responsibility, fearlessness, humility, and selflessness, then you will allow the present moment to start actually shaping you the way it was intended. Willingness, openness, personal responsibility, fearlessness, humility, and selflessness all require a certain quality of intent. You must choose to use your precious free will to choose the way your soul calls. Often that choice means walking into the discomfort, into the pain, into the insecurity or danger. Often that choice means taking personal ownership for yourself, for your world, and for the well-being of those around you. Often that choice means allowing yourself to completely let go of everything you are not and of all of your stories and all of your definitions so that you might actually change and become even more. No matter how dark or difficult that change may seem to the conscious logical mind or your egoic mind. Ultimately, you have absolutely nothing to fear. The capital L light is always with you and within you. And when you're willing to actually accept responsibility and grow, the universe itself actively responds to your willingness. So, spiritual growth is a change in your very being, not necessarily your physical body, a change in your very awareness, fundamental awareness. So we have time for comments, questions, answers, testimonials. In lieu of somebody opening up their microphone and speaking up, I will move to the next essay. There are 3 more essays in this theme titled Life as Feedback. And the next essay is titled the counterpressure of circumstance. And before I get into reading that, I'm called to how many times I listen to Guy Finley stories where the essence of his talks and stories is simply about the essential need to understand how much I've identified with something, a set of thoughts, a situation, an object, and understanding how that identification with a thought pattern, a belief system, an object, a house, a car, a relationship, a status, that it's the actual dynamic that is put into play when I use my mind energy to identify with something, to start to believe I couldn't live without this. It's that process with, it's how I'm choosing to use my own mind energy that creates my upset, creates my pain and suffering. I had a session with somebody earlier today, and she it was a perfect example of this. She said, I couldn't live if one of my children died. Now, her children are out on the verge of death. It's not something that's knocking on the door. She's sitting in a climate controlled room with a therapist she likes and appreciates, and choosing her to focus her mind energy on something that's generating untold discomfort within her. Oh my God, I couldn't stand it if my son or daughter died. If she's identified with herself, her whole sense of identity and value and purpose in life is as a mother to these specific children or young adults, as the protector of these people, as the person whose job it is to keep them safe and healthy. If she pours enough of her mind energy into that, then every little thing that happens with them that doesn't go according to her roadmap, her mental roadmap, she will generate extensive suffering. So, just a little sidebar there. Every time I identify with something, I have literally created an even more intense illusion or hallucination of myself as being small and tiny and myopic and defined in just this way. And all these great spiritual teachings that we're tapping into are saying, listen, you're far bigger than any problem you ever encounter. You are so much more than your physical body and or your physical possessions. I say that I remember in some of the early inner workshops that I would hear Dr. Michael Rice give, he would say, um, I did some research into the billionaire that was at the time the most wealthy human being on the planet. I did some research into how much money he left when he died. And he gives this nice pause and builds it up, and everybody's thinking, oh, there's going to be some big number. And then Michael Rice says, all of it. Right? You're not taking any of this physical stuff with you. You're not taking your gold. You're not taking your magazine covers. You're not taking your hair. You're not taking your young, strong, buff body with you. When you leave this physical realm, that's it becomes abundantly clear that that's not what this is about. So if the physical realm is not about the physical, what's it about? It's about the experiences we can have only in the physical realm. It's about the quality of our personality, if you're buying into the model that Christian Sundberg talks about here. It's about the quality of intent and personality. It's about the strength of my willingness to choose for love in more and more difficult circumstances. So that was a sidebar. Now back to A Walk in the Physical. And this essay is titled The Counterpressure of Circumstance. Christian writes, the physical life is a constraint set that offers the spirit valuable counterpressure that is necessary to participate in personal and collective expansion. To the unlimited, powerful spirit, the opportunity to actually subject oneself to, quote, participation within a firm and rigorous context, close quotes, is an extremely precious opportunity. Now, please slow yourself down and try to conceptualize this, because within our physical realm, where we spend so much of our time, intelligence, money, and energy trying to create comfort, trying to avoid difficulty, trying to overcome challenges, try to stay safe, try to accumulate things, it's really not top of mind for us to think that I might be an infinite, expansive, powerful spirit that's just put a tiny bit of my attention into this physical body for the purpose of expanding my experience base and contributing to this expansion of the creative energy. So I'll read that last sentence again. To the unlimited, powerful spirit, the opportunity to actually subject oneself to participation in this firm and rigorous context is an extremely precious opportunity. It's a precious opportunity for me to be able to conceive of myself as small and limited and vulnerable and capable of being hurt. Well, I don't know anybody in the physical realm who thinks that's a precious opportunity. So in order for that sentence to make any sense, you have to understand the first part of the sentence where it says, in truth, you are an unlimited, powerful spirit who's just having this very temporary, very small, very short window of opportunity to experience yourself as limited. As I was driving to work this morning, I thought about the passage of time. I thought about, one of my siblings posted some pictures on Facebook, and they're pictures of my sons at younger ages with my mother. Loving pictures, beautiful hugs, smiling faces. And it seems like only yesterday. You may have heard that phrase, you may have uttered it yourself, but when we get to a certain age, we realize that our perception of time, our experience of time is speeding up. When I was a kid, it seemed like, the summer lasted forever. And right around seventh or eighth grade, I started getting really disgruntled with the fact that summer went way too fast. And now, years are flipping on the calendar, seemingly, to my personal experience. So what if, whenever we drop the body, that just accelerates at a quantum speed, so that this 70, 80, 90, 114,000 year experience in the physical is but the blink of an eye to your true self, to your total expanded, ultimately powerful, unlimited spiritual being. So if you're still in the physical realm and you're trying to make sense of this, you've got to stretch everything you think you know. You got to try on different templates for observation and interpretation. And so here's one to try on. What if to your true self, it's a precious gift to be able to be in a tight spot here on earth, to be able to have the pressures of your life feel like you're spinning 17 plates and juggling 34 balls at the same time. Christian goes on and writes, the circumstances of your life are the valuable counterpressure that your soul uses to become more, to grow, to stretch. It uses circumstances to expand its awareness of what reality can be and to identify what it wants and what it does not want, and to refine qualities of itself within a certain context. Your life is the context. You are the soul having this experience. So he writes, a couple of very simple metaphors may be helpful. Physical life might very crudely be compared to getting on a roller coaster. Once you're strapped in, you're in for the ride and you can't get off. The ride may be terrifying while you're on it, and yet it's also exhilarating to experience, and it creates wonderful memories. Oftentimes, those who get off a roller coaster get right back in line to ride it again. Others may decide they've had enough of roller coasters and not get back on. Another very crude analogy might be physical life is like lifting weights on a weight bench. The counterpressure of the weights pushing against you can be uncomfortable, but you utilize the counterpressure to grow stronger and become capable of more. In our case, it's not the physical muscle we're building, but spiritual muscle. We're growing our capacity to successfully engage realities, however they unfold, in a creative, loving, and fearless manner. We are growing our capacity to successfully engage our experience of the present moment. The physical universe is high intensity, it's full blown, it's an experience context like no other, wherein the soul, which is your awareness, can temporarily adopt a role within form and then use that role to better define and discover and refine itself. Your circumstances then are not curses, no matter how dire they may seem to you. Your circumstances are precious opportunities. At times, those opportunities can seem overwhelming or perhaps even impossible to endure. There is no shame in becoming overpowered by circumstance. Your true power does not lie in your ability to mold your circumstances to how you would prefer them to be. Just let that sink in. Your true power is not what you're taught about in the physical realm by most cultures, certainly in the Western culture, because they teach, yeah, your true power is in your ability to make things happen and to carve out your career and to accumulate money and to win this argument, etc. But they point out your true power does not lie in your ability to mold your circumstances to how you would prefer them to be. Your true power lies in your ability to choose how you will meet your circumstances. Your true power lies in your ability to choose for love over fear. Your true power lies in your ability to direct the flow of your mind energy, which is an ultimately creative force, which is always on. So are you going to choose for love or choose for fear? Are you going to choose for sadness? Are you choose for anger? Are you going to choose for guilt and shame and condemnation and judgment? Or are you going to choose for allowance and acceptance and surrender? Christian goes on and says, sometimes, physically speaking, you can do nothing at all. Life is just going to unfold the way life unfolds. And yet, even when that's true, you always have the power to meet your experience with courage, humility, acceptance, and love. That power is the true power. For you have come here to do just that. You have come here to actually and personally meet your physical context with a high quality of intent, an intent to choose for love. And when you do that, you'll be using the counterpressure of the physical world as it was intended. And you will automatically begin to transcend the challenges of the physical experience. Now, I am one of those people who have been through some things that I would say I would never do this to my worst enemy. And that list of things is growing, not necessarily year by year. I've had a few years where nothing happened that would go into that category of this is so bad I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And yet, at this stage in my life, there are a lot of items on that list. They include things like breaking a vertebra in my back. They include things like having a divorce I didn't want. They include things like getting failed in my first attempt at my oral defense of my dissertation, and on and on and on. And yet, with this, most of us know the phrase hindsight is 2020. With the benefit of hindsight and with the wonderful resources my parents gave me, as blessed as they were, to give me what I consider to be, some of the finest examples of parenting and love and nurturance and support that I've ever heard of. With me choosing to bring that to bear in a certain way, pretty much every one of those things that I would say no one should have to go through this and I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy have led to things that are some of the best things in my life today, and or have led to my being able to assist and support others in going through sometimes unspeakably difficult situations. And in that list of things that I would never want to wish on my worst enemy and upsets that derailed my ability to stay loving, at least for a short period or sometimes an extended period of time, I still find ample opportunity to do worksheets, reality management worksheets, either the mental short version or the full-blown 7-step. Most often these days when I'm doing it, I use the app on my phone for the 7-step worksheet process. EFT tapping is a routine in my life that I pull up. It's not necessarily every day, but more often than not, I use the breath, I use the worksheets, I use the reality management worksheet to shift my awareness away from the things I've identified with and been trained and conditioned to identify with. And the biggest, most unproductive identification that I have is this thought that, this shouldn't be happening. That's the biggest, most unproductive thought pattern that's been programmed into me that I have to be vigilant to notice as soon as it comes up and to actively work to dismantle. Because in truth, I love the way Michael Singer talks about it in a couple of his different courses. As far as we can tell, the universe we're living in began 13.84 billion years ago. And it's been expanding, and everything that you see, every molecule in your body, every molecule on the desk and the chair and the world around you, whether it's a tree or a squirrel, every bit of that energy came from a star, which came from other stars, which came from other stars. So everything you're experiencing moment to moment is the byproduct of an unfolding creation that's 13.84 billion years in the making. So I hope you can see how ridiculous it is for you to sit there with a mind that's only been processing thought and using whatever language was programmed into it for a few decades and make an assessment that what's unfolding in life is not right. And I know it goes against all the logic I was trained in. All I can tell you is the quality of my life has improved by leaps and bounds the more I've actively worked on catching that false identification, that false belief that I know better than the flow of life. And as soon as it results in a tightness or a tension or an upset, breathing and softening and just starting to ask myself questions like, well, I wonder how this is going to work out better than anything I had planned. Or I wonder how this is going to turn into a blessing. Or I wonder how this situation contains a lesson that I need to learn to move to the next level. And if I did nothing else other than that, right? If I look back with as honest as I can be, I see that that particular approach and tool to choose that template of interpreting whatever unfolds has been responsible for more positive change in my life than any other single tool. The next level of successful tool would be the reality management worksheet. The idea that it is highly beneficial for me to identify any goal I'm holding whenever I'm upset and then cancel it. So we have two more essays in this theme. If no one is raising a hand and I don't see anybody unmuting, I will move on to the second to last essay. This essay is titled, Not 1 Ounce of Pain is Wasted. And Christian writes, reality is efficient. All things occur within what we call, quote, divine laws, close quotes. These divine laws have been established from inconceivable wisdom and love. That includes experiences of hardship and pain. As difficult as it can be for us to understand, pain also is meaningful. And ultimately, pain has an important role that serves lasting love and joy. How can this be, you might ask? How can terrible pain and misery exist within love? What purpose can it possibly serve? While this is very difficult to speak to from this human perspective that we're all in, there are 3 important points we may consider. The first point is the experience of contrast creates a distance into which the fullness of the joy of being may expand. The experience of contrast creates a distance into which this experience of joy of being may expand. So someone's unmuted. Sally, do you have a comment or a question?
No,
Oh,
sorry about that.
that was unintentional. All right.
He's so sorry.
I will mute you. And so the experience of pain can create this contrast, which opens a space into which the joy of being may expand. Everything negative, and we label these things negative, so the word negative is in quotes here, everything that we might label as negative serves as a point of contrast to help establish the experientially known depths of what is, quote, positive, close quotes. In other words, love can be better known forever when the spirit has actually known and understood this illusion of separation from love. The second point is that what we call negative experience, even when unanticipated, offers what we call a, quote, counterpressure opportunity, close quotes, for the spirit to exercise loving or brave choice making through that moment. To put as a very crude metaphor, if you can play the video game on a harder difficulty level, you develop mastery very quickly and then later apply that mastery in other games and other realities in other ways. The counterpressure of challenge enables us to expand our capacity for expressing and actualizing love, capital L love. The third point they want to make is that by experiencing challenge, the whole system ends up discovering novelty. And this is in quotes, this process of discovering novelty, close quotes. So the experiencing challenge opens up the system to discovering novelty within itself and adding potential. Think of it this way. If all I ever do is all I've ever done, I never go anywhere I've never been, and I don't grow in that way. Right? If all I ever do is all I've ever done, I never learn anything new. I never have a new experience. He writes, creative manifestation begets and creates more creative manifestation. To put it another way, even in a situation that is apparently destructive, more things become possible than may otherwise have been possible. All three of these ultimately serve lasting love and joy. Indeed, in the perfect balance of what is, not 1 ounce of pain is wasted. For even when we cannot see it, every element of our experience, including our pain, is a precious and meaningful part of the great love-threaded tapestry of creation. Even when we cannot see it, every element of our experience, including our pain, is a precious and meaningful part of the great love-threaded tapestry of creation. So as I was reading that, I was thinking about Mount St. Helens. And I know most of you were. You instantly flashed on Mount St. Helens as soon as I read that last section. But Mount St. Helens was a mountain in Oregon that erupted in 1980, 81, somewhere in there. And what they've studied in the past 40, 45 years or whatever of studying the area after that massive explosion helps them understand how that entire region of Northern California and Southern Oregon was formed. And it was formed by volcanoes like this. And they can now understand it differently and better because they've seen how these massive explosions and massive you know, billions of tons of rock and dirt and the pressure waves that level trees for hundreds of square miles shape the terrain. And yet, right after that, most everybody who looked at that said, oh my God, this is devastation, right? We talk about the word devastation as though it's a negative thing. It is a level of creation that, as we were just reading, might look like destruction because trees that were alive and growing and thick and they get flattened in minutes. And yet, what happens as a result of that is it creates a space for all kinds of new growth. It creates a new landscape. It creates different recombinations of elements in the soil. And it provides an opportunity for different species to thrive. So this work is inviting us to spin the kaleidoscopic wheel of interpretation for whatever arises in our life. And instead of when our interpretation of what's happening lands on something negative, to take a breath and spin the wheel again and see if we can't look at it at least through a neutral lens, if not a positive lens, at least a questioning lens. At least I wonder how this is going to turn out better than anything I had planned. I wonder what lesson this flow of life events contains for me that I can't get any other way. I wonder how I might choose or be used as a blessing for myself and others in this moment. I I've said this repeatedly. I probably will say it repeatedly for years. There aren't any words for how much better my life has gotten over the past 20 or 21, 22 years, where I have actively worked to hold that perspective day in and day out. At the earliest warning sign of upset in my life, take a breath, turn the focus inside myself, and actively ask those questions and just watch what comes up. I have done that for over 20 years now, and my experience has been that the quality of my life has improved in ways that words can't describe. But we're trying to use words to communicate with each other, so I've landed on saying this to people. The first thing I would point your attention to is that I spend the tiniest fraction of time in my life in any given day in negative emotions compared to what I did before I learned this skill and chose to practice it. I spend the tiniest fraction of my life day to day in anger, in fear, in worry, in sadness, in hurt, in guilt, in negative self-thoughts. It's amazing how little that grabs me these days compared to what it was 20 some years ago. And the second thing I point people's awareness to if they want to try and understand how my life has changed beyond words for the better is that these days I see all kinds of little miracles, little pleasant coincidences, little synchronicities, as Jung would call them. And my hunch is they were always there, but I couldn't see them when I would get angry and irritated and judgmental, because as we all know, when I'm angry, the more angry I get, the smaller my field of vision gets, the more myopic my vision, the more tiny a range of things I'm focused on. And so they were probably always there, but I couldn't see them when I was raging and I was pouring my mind energy into how I'm right and the world is wrong and this shouldn't be happening, etc. The last essay in this category, in this theme, and again, the theme is titled Life as Feedback. And the last essay is titled, Hardship is a Gift. Everybody's getting excited. They can't wait for me to read this. I know everybody's getting all their joys bubbling to the surface as you hear the title, Hardship is a Gift. Smile, you're lucky to have this hardship happen to you. Not for us in the physical realm. And yet, there's probably a part of your soul, of your consciousness, of your infinitely expanding, completely safe consciousness that is viewing every hardship your physical body goes through as a gift. Here's what Christian writes. Challenge is a gift. When the individual is challenged by circumstance, the opportunity for the spirit to apply itself and expand through that experience is an absolute gift. It's not that the hardship itself is good, but rather the hardship is neutral, even if painful, but it's a neutral catalyst that can be useful. The ego may reject this. As a matter of fact, the ego almost always rejects this. Even now, after 20 some years of practicing, often the first response I have is, this is bad, this is wrong, this sucks, this is terrible. But I'm practiced at catching that response and putting it on the side over here at the kiddie table with some Oreo cookies and milk and choose to live in the question and ask, I wonder how this is going to turn out far better than anything I could have planned. So he goes on and says, the ego may see hardship as simply terrible and negative, but nothing terrible and negative arises that your spirit cannot ultimately use. There is nothing greater than, quote, all that is, close quotes. And therefore, nothing can arise within it that is not of meaning. Even hardship, and often especially hardship, ultimately has great value in the churning processes of manifest creation, which ultimately serve the expansion of everlasting joy. To the immortal and all-powerful spirit, by the way, that's you. It's not you as you think of yourself, but it's what is animating your physical body, is a tiny bit of an immortal and all-powerful spirit. To the immortal and all-powerful spirit, challenge is a precious opportunity to bring virtue to bear, to expand and actualize the depths of one's own love and light in a very real, lasting way. We are spirit first and human second. The challenges of the secondary human experience are often worth the temporary price to the bold spirit who knows the truth of immortality and wishes to expand itself and to expand the joy of all that is forever. So now he asks, in what ways is the world pushing you, painfully at times, to let go of your fear and ego? In what way is the world compelling you to embrace your joy, live your truth, and share your love? What is the hardship of your life teaching you? What is the pain of your story saying? If you listen deeply, beneath all the labels, all the identifications, your deeper spirit is always there, ready to help you utilize this current circumstance for lasting purposes that may far exceed anything your human mind can imagine. So there you have it. That's all I'm going to read today. I'm grateful as always for everyone who's joining us here today, and I'll take a moment to just remind us that there will be a support group tonight, and a moment or two if anybody who's on the call wants to unmute and add a comment or two. We've got about 3 or 4 minutes before I will wrap this show up. There is a support group tonight. please feel free to join us or pass that information along to somebody you think might benefit. Mindshiftersacademy.org is the place to go for all the free login information through Zoom. You can join us as some people do on your phone, or you can join us through your computer or tablet. And today is Thursday, so we will have one more show this week. I haven't heard anything different, so I will assume that Michael will be on the Needle app to do a second hour today. And that's all I have to offer. So if no one raises a hand here real quick, I'm just going to wrap up and remind people that we come from love. We're made of the stuff we call love. We actually are love, the energy of creation expressing in form, and everything else is false. Blessings.